Hey guys, SP64 here, and as you all know, I am no longer doing Boom reviews. Why, you may ask? Well, be sure to check out my latest update video where all is explained. I also stated that I would make a video giving my personal thoughts on the Sonic Boom TV show, so without further ado, let's begin.
Hey everyone, I am the Sega Scourge, the Sonic Theorist, and today I'm discussing a theory on—
Wait. Scourge? How did you get into my video?
Oh, Nicole? Whoops, sorry, I think I might have warped too far. Chaos energy is tricky business. I must have zapped into your video by accident.
Hold on, how are you able to use chaos control when you're human?
Oh, well, you see, that's to do with the correlation between molecule mass and—
well, never mind, no one really cares. I was actually about to give my personal thoughts on the Sonic Boom TV show.
Damn. And here I was all ready to do a theory video.
Oh, don't worry, we'll be sure to work on that soon enough. For now, do you want to join me in giving your thoughts on Sonic Boom?
Well, despite not having much congenial, or in layman's terms, nice things to say about Boom, sure, why not? Might be a good occasion to let off some steam. Characterization in Sonic Boom was always something I was irresolute towards. It's a tricky point for the dev team in my humblest opinion. In one regard, they may want to stay faithful to the source material in an effort to please the enduring fanbase, but on the opposite end, they might feel the need to inject some of their own flair into the mix in an effort to revamp or modernize the characters, make them appealing to the new generation, and to give the show some identity of its own, whilst still carrying the mantle of Sonic.
Unfortunately, these reimaginings of the characters fall phenomenally short in their video game counterparts in almost every defining regard, and actually do a great injustice to the franchise as a whole in my opinion. They're bland, uninteresting, stereotypical, and inaccurate, with only a few minor good points saving them from tipping over the edge. Each of them works on tried and tested personality archetypes, but the show's writing thrives on its use of humour, and each of the characters reflect that, as most of the show's jokes flow from them.
Sonic's the poster child of the show, so for the most part, his personality remained the same, apart from a mildly extra-emphasized ego. The centerpiece for his character is his speed, so they made the very simple decision of having his speed be his punchline. Most of his on-screen comedy centralized around that. He also talks way faster than he does in the games. Has anyone noticed? Like, maybe it's just me, but he always seems to shoot off into sentences and speak over characters, and honestly, it just comes off as annoying and douchey at sometimes.
I personally never mind the fact that Sonic has a slight boost in his ego when it comes to the Boom universe, probably because I'm the type of person who enjoys characters who are narcissistic yet still kind-hearted. So while some people might find Sonic's over-exaggerated ego bothersome, I think it makes his personality more interesting. However, this isn't to say that I completely enjoy how Sonic is portrayed within this series. The problem I have with Sonic's personality is that he sometimes comes across as kinda boring. I don't exactly know what it is that makes me think this, but there's just something about his character at times that makes me uninterested in watching him in the show. However, if there is one thing I really enjoy when it comes to Sonic, it has to be his bromance with Knuckles. If only Sonic and Knuckles will interact more like this in the modern games now, considering that there hasn't been a single cutscene featuring these two having a conversation since, well, a long-ass time. So overall for Sonic, sure he's got flaws, but he's probably my favourite in terms of the main cast. Most people have stated that Dr. Eggman is the best character in the show due to the way he's portrayed and the comedic moments he has. However, I personally wouldn't say that Eggman gallivanting around making constant comments about his mustache and treating Sonic as if they're more like frenemies than enemies is a good thing. I look back at how intimidating Eggman used to be, when he considered Sonic to be his arch-nemesis. I know that Sonic Boom is simply a spin-off series, and so the characters have undergone several personality changes, but I feel like making Eggman the goofy antagonist does more harm than good. He's not terrible, but he's not great either.
Boom Dr. Eggman, to me, just serves to further drive home the fact that he has fallen far from his pedestal of genuine villainy from SA1 and 2. This rendition of Eggman is a bumbling, half-witted man-child, equivalent to that of an angry neighbor, that the writers gave barely any opportunities to showcase his IQ or skill set, and at no point did he come across as a bona fide threat. Just simply a guy who can build robots, wants to take over one specific island for some reason, and loves his mustache. Tails is the Tinkerer, and feels just as redundant as before. Your plain-as-day, nerdy character, and most of his humor spans from his experimental devices and other characters' reactions to his overcomplicated speeches. Mind you, they do attempt to add some minor depth to his personality in instances like the episode Tails' Crush, by showcasing a fragile side of his self-confidence that his friends have to pull him through. But that's it, really.
When watching Boom, I found myself feeling sorry for Tails, as he seemed to be the Meg Griffin of the group, constantly having the others making snide comments, especially Amy for some reason. How even Sonic makes a few mean comments towards him, something you wouldn't necessarily see within the modern series. In terms of his actual personality, I have to somewhat agree with you, Scourge. Whilst Tails could be considered bland, he is also one of the most normal characters in the entire cast, being the character who is the closest to matching his modern counterpart. In some ways, this is actually pretty good. It means there's some normality to the series other than just spewing out random comments and calling it comedy. However, this does make Tails kinda bland in comparison to the other characters in the show. Many people have pointed out how Knuckles is probably one of the biggest personality and design changes when it comes to Sonic Boom. Unlike his modern counterpart, Knuckles is just plain stupid. Even going as far as not being able to read, and personally I just don't get why that needed to be done. In previous Sonic games, Knuckles was tricked by Eggman, sure, but that wasn't because he's stupid. It's because he likes to believe that he's able to see the good in others, which makes him simply gullible. Maybe it's because Knuckles is the strong guy, and so he was given the strong yet stupid character archetype. Whilst there have been one or two moments that have gotten a chuckle from me, most of the time it's kinda painful to see that Knuckles is portrayed this way.
The heinous butchering of Knuckles is by far the worst offender of mischaracterization. His design certainly caused quite a spectacle in the community during his initial reveal. Due to Knuckles always being the strongman character, the devs hyper-magnified his design into a towering muscle-bound abomination, and just to make matters worse, they lowered his mental capacity to houseplant level. Amy's representation isn't too bad. She's seen as more independent and caring, almost like a counselor or a life coach. She's far more physically able than her video game counterpart, showcasing acrobatic knowledge and battle tactician, capable of holding her own in large-scale skirmishes and so on. Her feelings towards Sonic are greatly differed in the show. Rather than an overbearing, one-sided love, Boom Amy is reluctant to share her feelings to the Blue Blur and would much rather keep them a secret. Starting off as just friends, but then inadvertently developing more and more romantic feelings that she is too scared to confront Sonic about or move forward with for what it may do to the existing relationship, drawing many parallels with real-life scenarios. So in this regard, she is in some ways better than the Amy we know from the main series.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there. Sure, Amy is more independent, and I have nothing against that. It's just the fact that Amy is personally the character I dislike the most in the show. Now, if you enjoy Amy's portrayal, then that's completely fine. I just kind of find her to be, well, a bitch. She belittles her friends, especially Tails and Knuckles for some reason, and pretty much considers herself to be the leader of the group. That's not to say that Amy doesn't have any moments where I do enjoy watching her, such as the episodes Fortress of Squalitude, Buster, Sidekick, Can Evil Genius Crash on Your Couch for a Few Days, Fuzzy Puppy Buddies, and Into the Wilderness. Probably because she's actually nice in those episodes and doesn't make any snide comments. I'm sorry, I've really tried to like Amy more in the show, but I just can't. To me, she's incredibly bitchy and nasty to her friends at times. I enjoy the episodes where she acts more like her modern counterpart, and to be honest, I prefer modern Amy to Boom Amy. Modern Amy can be bossy, sure, but she's more supportive of her friends than she is in Boom. So yeah, I don't like Boom Amy. If you guys do, then that's cool, I just don't. Oh, and as for Son Amy and Boom? I don't mind it. At least it's more believable that Sonic would fall in love with his friend than a girl who follows him everywhere he goes. When it comes to Styx, I actually kinda like her. Her design and personality is cute, and while some people dislike the raspy voice, I personally really like it. It's something different than any other Sonic female we've seen. If there is one thing that kinda bugs me about Styx though, it's that her shtick of being paranoid all the time can get tiresome. Though there is one standout episode featuring Styx, that episode being Into the Wilderness. I really like how Styx is portrayed in this episode because for once she isn't paranoid all the time. We get to see her survival techniques and how clever she can be when it comes to using her surroundings to get out of a bad situation. I just really hope there are more episodes where Styx is written like this in season 2, but if not, then I'll still enjoy watching her crazy antics all the same.
Styx is the newcomer to the team. Her paranoid and unhinged behavior is her character-specific trait, supposedly gained from her years of solitary life spent in the wild. Her lack of etiquette and overall ludicrous behavior can incur some pretty humorous reactions from the other characters. but often the writer's attempts at making Styx come across as funny through her random and outlandish remarks just fall flat and often feel a bit stale. It's that cowardly type of humor, the one writers resort to when they have nothing else left to say. The kind of humor that gets a laugh because of how sudden and stupid it is. It's like if someone just burst into a quiet room and shouted, "Potatoes!" You'd probably laugh, but it's not a clever use of humor. It's just random and senseless. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things I like about her. I adore her design and physical features, and her inclusion in the story doesn't feel forced. It blends well, and she feels like a nice, cutesy addition to the team. Heck, I don't even mind that she's showing up in more of the main universe nowadays either, but her personality is the element that falls so short to me. Her fanatical and ridiculous bearing may be likable to some, but for me, nah. She needs a bit more to her before I can feel fully comfortable.
I honestly have nothing really to say about Metal Sonic. I mean, his personality is pretty much the same as it has been in Sonic CD and Sonic Heroes. Perhaps if we see more of him in Season 2, I'll be able to say a little more about him. Scourge will probably have more to say about this character than I do.
Metal Sonic up till now has only appeared in one episode, episode 44. For the most part, Metal seems to be a carbon copy of his game counterpart, although noticeably a bit more durable than previous appearances, taking full direct hits to the head from Boom Knuckles, but other than that, that's about it as far as he goes. We haven't seen enough of him for me to accurately gauge what I think of his Boom incarnation, and what we have seen is basically a lot of the same, so... As for Shadow, while he has only appeared in the series finale up to now, without sounding too biased to the fact that I adore Shadow as a whole, and while I can't say their representation of him is perfect, I can't necessarily say it's wrong either. If anything, Boom Shadow is the most accurate portrayal of his game canon personality. Aggressive, brooding, and distant, partnered with the fact that Boom Shadow is actually an antagonist to Team Sonic in the show and the games, not an anti-hero, showcasing a violent and ruthless fighting style and belittling his opponent's lack of strength. This makes his overall delineation almost pinpoint exact to his personality in Sonic Adventure 2, thus giving the writers more wiggle room when it comes to his character development and progression. By playing on the stereotype, you can still present a comedic side to him through his overly edgy and dark persona. And by starting him out with this chaotic neutral alignment, by the time Season 2 rolls around, we could be seeing Shadow's character alter and develop, so much that he may become a pivotal member of Team Sonic, with his own exclusive episodes. Perhaps seeing him work alongside Sonic, spending extensive time on screen with the main cast, and possibly protecting the village from Dr. Eggman for whatever reason. Essentially, Shadow from my perspective is undoubtedly the most hopeful chance we have for some half-decent branching story, and with plenty more room to evolve.
I have to agree with you there, Scourge. When it was announced that Shadow would be appearing in Sonic Boom's TV show, everyone lost their minds, due to Shadow being one of the fandom's most liked characters. I have to admit, I was slightly worried at first when I heard the news, considering the personality changes that other characters like Knuckles and Amy went through. However, as time went on, I actually became excited, especially when I heard that he was going to be a villain. The reason for this? Well, it's been so long since we have seen Shadow as a full-on villain, since nowadays in the modern series, he's a character who does whatever he wants, whether it's on the side of good or bad. While some people may think that making Shadow a villain would mean that his personality would be over-exaggerated, and in some ways it has been, this is not the case all the time. Shadow actually still has the mindset of doing what he wants when he wants, only he's on the bad side. The way that Shadow has been written so far in the show is actually pretty close to his modern counterpart, kinda like Tails. If I had to make one complaint, it would have to be that there hasn't been a valid reason as to why Shadow seems to have a grudge against Sonic in particular. Hopefully Season 2 will delve into this and maybe even give some backstory for both of the Hedgehogs. Hell, I would even like an episode with Sonic and Shadow, or just some interaction between them, since the Season 1 finale didn't really do a good job at that. In terms of comedy, it seems that most of his comedic moments come from the reactions he gives to the goofy actions of other characters, and by reaction I mean just standing there with his arms folded not saying anything. Hey, at least it works. Personally, I think that Shadow's personality would work very well with Sonic's in terms of producing comedy. This serious character having to deal with the antics of a happy-go-lucky character. I don't know, maybe that's just me hoping for something like that in Season 2.
In short, the main characters are effectively just incredibly watered-down versions of the characters we already know. Mishandled mishmashes of canon and non-canon.
Pretty much.
As for the villagers and side characters, well, whilst varied, Most of them are fairly generic and uninteresting. None of them really made a lasting impression on me, minus a few one-offs such as T.W. Barker, Charlie, and Percy too, I guess, but that's about it. Characters like Fastidious Beaver and Comedy Chimp just shouldn't exist.
Dude, don't even get me started on Comedy Chimp. He's just a pointless and unfunny character who seems to appear in way too many episodes. As for the villagers, I'm not keen on them either, in regards to both the designs and the personalities. Or lack thereof. Let's start with the designs. Honestly, they're bland as fuck, the main colour schemes being purple, brown, grey, and light blue. If you put Team Sonic in a crowd of the villagers from Sonic Boom, you can spot them in an instant. I just wish there were more vibrant looking villagers. Or just more villagers overall. Seriously, from the looks of it, there's only about 10 people who live in the village, probably less than that. There really needs to be more villagers added in, and not just clones, which I'll talk about a bit later. As for the personalities, oh boy, these guys are very unlikable. None of them have a mind of their own, and they're so boring and even ungrateful assholes. A great example that highlights the flaws of the villagers will be the episode Just a Guy, where Sonic finds himself being criticized for stating that a guy is a guy. Ugh. Later on in the episode, Sonic rants about how he saves the villagers from danger all the time and yet feels that he gets no thanks and instead gets yelled at when stating simple things. This episode made me really dislike the side characters in the show. However, there are some side characters who do have some personality and that I actually don't mind as much. These characters consist of Dave the Intern, Fastidious Beaver, T.W. Barker, and Percy. Dave is a typical teenage character for the braces and the nerdy action figures who lives in his mum's basement. However, I still kind of enjoy this character, probably due to the voice that Roger Craig Smith gives for this character. Plus, his design is one of the most vibrant out of all the villagers, making him stand out more when in a crowd or even in the background. Fastidious Beaver is a fun character too. A grammar Nazi, sure, but still fun. Even though his main shtick is to correct people on their use of vocabulary, I personally never get tired of it. T.W. Barker is probably my second favourite side character. He's witty, likes money, and knows how to trick people so that things turn out in his favour. My favourite episode featuring him would have to be Don't Judge Me, where he acts as Eggman's lawyer. I don't know why, I kind of feel like he suits being a lawyer more than a circus ringleader. Percy's my personal favourite side character in the show, probably because she's likeable and actually has a well-developed personality. And unlike the other side characters, she has her own episode which shows her cool attitude, who would sooner fix her own bike than deal with the antics of the main cast. I would love to see Percy make more appearances in season 2, and without the clones. Looking at you, Stacy? I'm aware that I missed out on a few characters like Zoe and Charlie, but here's why I'm not fond of those two in particular. Zoe has no personality other than, I'm a female fox with a slight lisp and tells his girlfriend I think I don't really know, I'm only in 1 or 2 episodes. And Charlie is just, well, he's kind of boring. Also, am I the only one that's really curious about this side character? Is he gonna appear in season 2? No? Yes? Okay.
Set on the quaint Bygone Island, this humble landmass of rural foliage, quiet villages, and ancient ruins is the centerpiece for most of the wacky antics engaged in by Sonic and his team. Or rather, that's what I would say if the setting wasn't completely misused and overshadowed in place of recurring stale humor. Now, I've noticed a lot of economizing on assets throughout my run of Sonic Boom, but the setting of Bygone Island easily takes the cake on being the most wasted, cadaverous, missed opportunity of the entire show.
I agree. There have been so many times where I've been watching Sonic Boom and noticed a statue in the background and being more interested in knowing what that is instead of the scenario occurring in the same scene. I feel like there's so much more that the Rise can do with the setting. Remember when it was stated in the Rise of the Lure game that Percy is pretty much meant to be the guardian of the island? Yeah, never used or mentioned in the show. Why though? That's a really interesting concept. I'm happy that there will be more locations shown to us in season 2, seeing as how the writers are even aware of the small amount of locations that there are. And another thing, can we please put more things in Sonic's house? Seriously, look at it, it looks pretty much empty. There's only a table, a dartboard, a hammock, and a TV. That is it. Look how much detail there is in Amy, Styx, and Tails' homes. I would say Knuckles too, but for some reason he doesn't really have a house, so I think we just have to assume that he's homeless. I know this is a small element to the overall show, but it's always bugged me how empty Sonic's house is. I'm really hoping that some of these issues with the setting are dealt with in season 2. The animation in the show is a hit or miss for me. There are times where the animation looks pretty nice in terms of the fluidity and the lighting, and there are other times where the animation looks like complete shit. For the most part though, the animation is fine. It could be improved, sure, but the character models look pretty cool. However, I do have two main problems that need to be changed in Season 2. The first problem being the amount of clones that are used. My god, this screams laziness. Whenever there are two or more characters that look exactly the same except with a different color scheme, it makes it very distracting and actually makes the show look very lazy in terms of animation. I understand that it can take a while to make a whole new model to animate with, but honestly this problem bugs me the most when it comes to the animation. The second problem I have with the animation in the show is how there are times where the facial expressions of the characters don't match the dialogue and how it's being said. A brilliant example of this would be from the episode Just a Guy, during Sonic's rant. Roger K. Smith does an amazing job of making Sonic sound as pissed off as possible, as if he's really had enough of the crap he's been dealing with. However, Sonic's facial expression makes him only look slightly annoyed. Granted, most of the time the facial expressions match the character's dialogue, but there are still moments where the characters look very emotionless, not matching the voice acting at all.
French-based Yeaah Productions are the working minds responsible for bringing the show and its poorly written characters to life in the form of CG animated monstrosities. Okay, I'm kidding. In all seriousness, the fully 3D characters and locations are all fashioned well, and the overall approach to Boom's distinctive and quirky animation style blends well with the tone of the show, as well as delivering bouncy visuals with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Now, whilst the fluidity of the animation work is great, or at the very least acceptable in its own regard, there are moments where it seems to be too fickle. What I mean by that is in certain scenes, characters seem to snap wildly between being fidgety and over-jittery. And in other scenes, they seem slowed down and not nearly as emotive as you'd think they'd be given the situations they're put in. Honestly, I'm not sure if it was a style choice or just laziness, but it's really jarring when the writing and the animation doesn't seem to match up. And those fucking mouths, bro. Jesus, can someone get on that shit in Season 2, please? I know it's nitpicking, but it's a flaw I distinguished before all others. In some scenes, despite the characters talking loudly and fervidly, I can barely see them flapping their lips at all, nor is their facial emotion matching up with their words. They're so expressionless, almost like they're out of sync, or the animators didn't realize what the characters were doing in precise scenes.
Overall for Season 1 of Sonic Boom, it's not bad, but it's not the greatest either. There are both pros and cons when watching the show, and the writing can be cliché in some episodes, but there are other episodes where the writing is pretty good. Though even with all of its flaws, I'm personally still going to watch Season 2. What about you, Scourge?
Yeaah and Sega of America are often the brunt of a torrent of unyielding hate, hostility, memes, but for what it's worth, despite the flack they receive, for the huge responsibility they had on their shoulders with handling these characters, I think that it was handled reasonably well. Though, in all honesty, I still actually prefer the writing of shows like Sonic Sat.AM, X, or even Underground, because those shows weren't afraid to be diverse or unusual. And when it comes down to it, that's what really matters: originality and identity, rather than an overabundance of cringy one-liners and poor plot development that leaves me with a heavy weight of ambivalence towards the show as a whole. But hey, it is what it is. Sonic Boom. It's a mess, and the games are terrible, but the show's half decent.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, guys. Let us know your thoughts on the Sonic Boom TV show down in the comments below. Any final words, Scourge?
Well, as I'm sure most of you know by now, I am the Sega Scourge, the Sonic Theorist, and I host a Sonic Theory show of the same name exclusively over on my channel. Notable theories of mine include my Metal Sonic is Sonic theory, why Sonic can breathe in space, and my theory surrounding Silver's ancestors, so if that all sounds like something you'd be interested in seeing, go check out my channel by clicking the link in the video description below. And also, of course, I'd like to thank my girlfriend Nicole for letting me guest appear in this video.
See you later, guys.